Thanks, Alex. I appreciate your patience, I should say. My name is Mary Thayer. I am an alcoholic. I'm coming to you from Tampa, Florida. I live about 30 feet from the bay. So as I look to the left, I've got the bay out there. So a lot of people who don't know this, as I'm talking, sometimes I need some energy and I get a lot of energy off that bay. So you might see me just turn because that's where I feel safe, protected, whatever. I'm glad to be here. This is one of my favorite parts of the book. And I'm going to start kind of a little bit in the beginning. I got sober September 13th, 1973. I'm from New England, but I took a geographical cure and ended up in Southern California. So I got sober out there, and I belonged to a clubhouse that was known as North Hollywood Radford. It was great. It really was. Anyways, at that time, there was a woman who ran the club, and her name was Alabama Carruthers, and she was out of Texas, and she was quite the character. And whenever she spoke, I would listen because she had an energy that was so strong, a lot of depth and weight. A lot of depth and weight in those days anyways. I mean, Chuck Chamberlain was still alive and I still listened to him. And Sybil was the first speaker I ever heard when I first meeting, who was our woman who was the first woman who got sober west of the Mississippi. And so there was just a lot of depth and weight that was always around. But I remember one day I was sitting out there, and when I came in, I was a wreck. I had a hole in my gut and the wind was blowing through. And the only place I ever felt safe was when I was sitting in a meeting. There was something about an energy in that room that made me feel safe and connected for a little bit, for about an hour and a half. And I heard her speak, and she got up at the podium and she said, "Anybody want to know what you're supposed to be doing between meetings?" And it was like she was reading my mind. And I thought, yeah, I do. And she said, "Well, go home and read page 86, 87, and 88. And she never said anything more about it, but I went home and I started to read that. And I read, what I was supposed to do at night and what I was supposed to do upon awakening. And I read this for 6 months before I heard it. Now, I'm not a dope, but I finally understand that there's a process that happens with me. And that is that I intellectually took things in, but I wasn't actually applying them. And so one of the times when I was reading it, this is the first line that hit me was when I picked to talk about tonight. I'm going to talk about all of it, but those 3 pages. But I was reading it. I was not raised in any religion, so I didn't have to get rid of a religion. I wasn't afraid of any religion. And it doesn't say, what did you come to believe in your religion? But whenever I heard anybody talk about a power greater than themselves, they would tell me whatever church they were going to. Well, I wasn't raised in a church, so I didn't have any background that way. But I used to listen to some people that weren't too happy with their churches and stuff. And so I knew that there was some fear around God if I talked to someone in certain religions. But one day I was reading this thing and I came to that line that said, God disciplined us. We're undisciplined. And God disciplined us in just what he had outlined before. And I thought, God disciplines me? I just got fascinated with that. I'm going to be disciplined? And I thought, and then I read on, Bev always says it's on the next page or read the next line. And it said, yeah, in the simple way he's just outlined. Well, what did he just outline? And I've been reading this for 6 months. And I went back and I read it again. And I realized that there are 8 asks in these 3 pages. And that's all God does, is disciplined me to ask him first. I don't know about you, but I go and I do what I want because I have a little self-will run riot, although I don't think so. And, you know, I don't even think I have to ask God about stuff. I just go and do whatever it is. And when it gets messed up, then I ask God. And that's completely opposite of what these 3 pages are talking about. I'm telling you this because I'm a slow teach. And, you know, I might have 48 years in this program, but I'm still a seasoned beginner. Especially since the pandemic, these pages have become more and more alive to me in the last couple of years. Not that I haven't been doing them. I mean, I'll be honest with you, but I can claim spiritual progress. I don't do anything 100%. If I meet anybody that's that perfect, I don't like them anyways, you know, because anyway, I think we're a little flawed. We're a little outright mental defectives, and it takes a while for us. So where do I want to go with this tonight? I really don't know. I never have any canned talk on this thing, but what I want to tell you is that I believe this whole program deals with me building a relationship with my best friend. That's what I call the God that I have experienced in this program. I have taken that from Bill's story. It took me 20 years before I found an experiential God, one that I can say that I truly have come to believe in. It took me a long time to see that the second step said that we came to believe that there was a power greater than ourselves. It doesn't say we came to believe in a power. It says that there was a power. Now that was no problem for me because I was so devastated, and the people I saw in these halls, I knew there had to be a power going on for them. So I knew that there was a power. I'd also experienced seeing something happen with my daughter, that there was there was nothing but maybe a miracle that had happened with her. And so I knew that there was something that could help. Now, I didn't believe in it. My journey through recovery has taught me how to believe in that power greater than myself. The people that touched me were all talking about the black lines of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. My sponsorship had me in a Big Book study since I was probably about 3 weeks sober. And they knew this book inside and out. And I remember I thought, if I only know what's in the black lines here, I'll know what's okay with me and I'll be all right. For 20 years, I was all right. I did this stuff. I mean, you know, thank God for Bill Musser. He said to me, you work these steps poorly until you learn to work them well, because if you wait to do them perfectly, you'll never do them at all. So I just continue to do the drill here. And what happened about 20 years in my program is that I had an enormous knowledge of the black lines of this book. Just amazing. I have one of those minds, I can still tell you pages and stuff, because in those days we didn't have, cell phones, and you couldn't reach somebody. You know, we didn't even have answering machines. And so we had to know where in the book we had read certain things. So I would write a synopsis down on certain pages in the beginning of my book. So what I realized as time went on is that this presence that I was after was an intellectual one that I had created in Alcoholics Anonymous because I didn't have any training beforehand. And it came from people saying to me, oh, just pick some, God is all powerful, all knowing, so I intellectually had something going on. And that didn't work for me. So I'm here to tell you about the last 28 years of my recovery and how it changed. Did I read page 86, 87, and 88 for 6 months before I saw that we're disciplined? Yes. Did I see that how I'm supposed to be disciplined is to ask God? Did I ask God? Sometimes. Sometimes I didn't. I didn't realize that my mind was undisciplined. That's what's undisciplined, is my mind. It says the main problem centers in our mind. And my mind was not disciplined to ask God. My mind was about me, the alcoholic opera. And as years went on and I started to wake up and say, God, please direct my thinking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. all of a sudden one day I realized that that says, upon awakening. Now I wake up every day. And the page before had said to me, I have a daily reprieve. And that each day that I wake up, I'm going to have self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. I don't know why I somehow assumed in that those voices in there that if I did it once, that it was done for the rest of my life. I kept thinking I was going to arrive someplace, and I'm gifted enough to go to a weekly meeting where I have a friend, Gary B., who has more time than me. And I always, when I get a chance, I say, hey, Gary, have you arrived any place yet? And he goes, no. I said, neither have I. I kept thinking I was going to arrive in this program. I didn't know where I was going to arrive to, but I didn't understand that this was a process. This was a way of life. This was a daily reprieve from the me, the traumas that I would develop in my mind. See, what I realized is that at step 10, when I finally did enough steps and I realized step 10 said that we've entered the world of the spirit, that means that I'm not alone anymore. If you've done 9 steps, you've got something going on inside. And have you ever watched yourself do something and say, why am I doing this? Who's watching if you're doing it? So you're going to realize that you're not alone. There is a presence deep down inside, happens to be my best friend, that will help me if I will ask that presence. So this discipline has to do with me asking and me kind of doing the drill and being ready to do it one day at a time for the rest of my life. Sometimes poorly, sometimes okay. But each thing on page 86, 87, and 88 will guide me to go back. So I was thinking about this and I was looking up the word discipline, and they had supportive and guiding and, whatever. And I realized that my life gets unmanageable. If I go back to doing this drill, I get something that happens to me where all of a sudden it shifts and it doesn't look as bad as it was 10 minutes ago. And one of the disciplines was to ask God to remove some fears. And then, that's the first one you go to when you enter the world of the spirit, by the way, in the 10th step. You go to God first because that's your real sponsor. And then it says, call somebody. And I'll call somebody and discuss something. And I have a sponsee that was on here tonight. Yesterday, she was kind of having her life was unmanageable. She woke up and she heard herself kind of spiraling. And there was a part of her that paused for half a second and said, gee, I think I'll call my sponsor. And she called me not because I'm going to do anything, but something she's connected to gave her a moment because she paused. Just all you have to do is pause and something will shift. By the time we get off the phone, her whole day went differently. And that's been my experience when I call my sponsorship. I meet with my sponsorship once a week. I have 2 sponsors. One's not available, the other one needs to be there. So, and then they usually just hold a candle for me. And that's what this program, I think, is about. When we get in a dark place and I call one of you people, or I call my sponsor, usually you can give me enough light for me to get back in connection with that presence I have found that is my best friend deep down inside. So, where do I want to go with this? As I grew in the program and I would read this stuff, I would read it. It took me, as I said, about 6 months before I saw what it said. And then it probably took me a few more months that one day I was in the office and I was working and my boss and I weren't getting along and I was really mad. And I was in the back room Xeroxing. We had Xeroxing machines in those days. I was Xeroxing things. And my mind, the gerbils, had a committee going with what an idiot my boss was. And I mean, it was going like mad. And all of a sudden, in amongst all of those voices in my head that I was listening to, not watching, but listening to, and getting involved with conversations in my head about, I heard this little voice say, when agitated or doubtful, we pause and ask for the right direction and the right thought. And I said, well, I am agitated and doubtful. So what is my right thought? Bang, the phone rang, and it was my sponsor. I couldn't believe it. It was that quick. And you know, and I said, Beverly. And she said, yeah. And I said, oh my God, God's working fast. This is what's going on. I never asked her what she wanted. She never calls me or anything. I don't know. To this day, I don't know why she called me. Maybe God told her to call me. I have no idea. But that was the first time that I realized it works. It really does if I apply this stuff. So it became like an adventure. And and Bev told me, this recovery is going to be like an obstacle course or an adventure that's going to be your choice till you die. It's going to be your choice. After a while, it's an adventure. And I have learned how exciting it is. I don't know, it's just great for me. So that's not too bad for me. I've been able to get up every morning and use those things and say, you know, upon awakening, asking God right away. That was my heaviest one that I used most of the time. Remember, you know, but half measures avail us nothing. But most of the time when I use it, they do work. Let me tell you, it really does. And it's a daily reprieve on that. One time years ago, I moved from California. I went back to New England. I was up in Maine, and somebody asked me to do one of these things on the 11th step. It was very interesting. And I remember I thought to myself, well, I do this thing, but I really want to have some more depth. And at that time, Dick B was alive, and he wrote a whole bunch of books, and he was in Hawaii. And I picked up the phone and called him because I was told you pick up the phone and talk to people. And I called him in Hawaii, and I said, I'm going to do this retreat, and I really want to know more about the 11th step. So he told me a couple of his books, and one of them, I don't know which one it was. Quiet Time, I think it was. And so he sent me that, and I was reading it, and it said that the Oxford group used to, upon awakening, ask for their, you know, to direct their thinking, that it be divorced, self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. And then they would stop, and they would pick up a journal, and they would write the next thought that came into their mind, the very next thought. And that was supposed to be communication with the power. Remember, this is what the 11th step is, to improve your conscious contact with your best friend. So that's what I'm doing. So I decided to try this. So I tried it I didn't know when I was speaking, but I did it for quite a while. And I realized after a while that when I did this, whatever thought it was that came into my mind was on a higher plane. You know, it doesn't say we direct our thinking. Yeah, we direct our thinking, removing the self. And then my thoughts are on a higher plane. It doesn't say my thinking is. I only think about whatever thoughts are going through my mind. And before I ask God to direct my thinking, I'm usually doing the alcoholic opera. Me, 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 me. So I'm only thinking about me. But once I do this and ask God to have this removed, I'm amazed. My thoughts are on a higher plane, and they usually are about maybe you. Might be about the ducks out here. They need to be fed. Or the cats. It doesn't make any difference. It's not about me, which is fascinating. And so when I was doing this journaling, I started to realize that I would be getting messages. It was fascinating to me. And so that's how I started to just kind of apply this. It's kind of like nobody's telling me I have to do anything like this. But I said, God, I want to try that, see what happens. Don't have to pay for it. Let's see if it's true. I remember one time as the years went on, I remember one day I woke up and my life was unmanageable. And, you know, so I know where my lines are to go back to the basics. And I remember I said, okay, God, direct my thinking. And I had my pencil and my paper because I was ready to do it. Nowadays, there's another wonderful man. I've listened to him, and I think he's a priest. Bill W. His name is Father Bill W. He's got two-way prayer, which is the same basis that I was doing years ago. But I had a direct bang, just like that when I did it that day. I sat there and okay, all right. So direct my thinking, please, God, please. Divorce it from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. And the first thought that came through my mind was, isn't this self-seeking for me to be asking you? And my pen wrote, no, this is soul-seeking. I knew right there. And then I would never have thought that. That was a thought so on a higher plane. And it lined up with everything I realized for myself. I've always felt as though alcoholism is a soul disease. It's my soul has been covered by a lot of pain. So I'm going to, I never know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to tell you this is what I believe about me. I believe each person, and I don't have it on tonight. Somebody gave me this wonderful acorn. Everybody knows what an acorn is. It's a little nut that has a funny little cap on it, little crusty cap. Well, I believe we're all born an acorn. And just the nut, it's perfect. It's smooth. There's not anything wrong with it. It's absolutely beautiful. And as life goes on, we get this little crusty cap on it. You know, people's thoughts, our teachers, our pain, our alcoholism, everything goes on there, everybody's thoughts and ideas. And then all of a sudden, what happens is that we have something come into our life, such as sobering up, where we get a little crack in the acorn cap and a little light gets in. And we evolve, and my soul starts to evolve. And I believe over the years that as I continue to do this drill and do these steps 1 through 12, little pieces of this acorn cap come off, and I get to be more what God wants me to be. Not what you people want me to be, but what God wants me to be. So I realized that as I do this program, there is necessary suffering in order to take some of that cap off every once in a while. But my book tells me that I have to get rid of some of my lifelong conceptions. You must get rid of your old ideas. It doesn't say your old bad ideas. It says your old ideas. I have to look at life from a new angle, prepared to look at this from a different angle. See, all through the book, it's telling me that perhaps I haven't been perceiving what has been happening to me. So by the time I get to my 4th step, I come out of the step. The 4th step is a fearless moral inventory. It isn't a fearful garbage inventory. It's a moral inventory that is trying to tell you where you've been going against your morals or values. You want to know what they are? It's on page 68. Sit with God for your best friend and ask God to remove your fear, and ask him what he wants you to be if you're not being fearful. Those are your values. Those are your morals. Those probably are God's. God wants me to be honest. He wants me to be open-minded. He wants me to be curious. He wants me to be authentic. He wants me to be courageous. I've done this over and over and over. I have a set of values. Remember, we practice these principles on all of our affairs. What areas of my life, if you want to just go through when I constructively review my day, I don't look where I'm selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid. I don't use those words. I ask myself, where have I been honest today? I go through my values and principles. And I'm telling you, I will find out real quick if I've been not, authentic, or if I've been people-pleasing, a phony, a liar, and, dishonest. If you're people-pleasing, that's what you are. My sponsor let me know that. I didn't like hearing that. That was a little harsh. But, the truth is, this is between you and your soul. You know deep in your soul whether or not you've been honest, whether or not you've been open-minded. And the first ask will come up at, tonight, if we get off and you just do the first, paragraph there when we're going to constructively review our day. It does not say destructively, it says constructively. So, so all right. So where have I been honest today? Have I been open-minded? Have I been kind? Have I been loving? Was I trusting you, God? Those are things I ask myself. And if I find that I haven't, which is very true, every single day, I can say the last thing. After making this review, I'm going to ask you, my best friend, to forgive me and inquire what corrective measures that I need to take. It does not say, I'm going to fix myself and think about it. I'm going to ask God that. Okay? Then I go to bed because in the morning I'm going to ask him to direct my thinking. More than likely, I'll have an answer by then. But I want you to know that usually my nightly review goes like this. Hey, my best friend, will you please forgive me? I've been trying to do your job again. What corrective measures can I take? Don Pritz said to me one time, he said, we're here to do God's work, not his job. 5 years before I understood God's job is to know the outcome. I'm not supposed to know the outcome. I'm here just to get up, do the drill, say thank you, say I'm sad, admit that I want something that maybe you don't want me to have, and go from there. Am I just about done? Anyways, what I want to do is I want to kind of wrap this up. I mean, what I'm going to say is discipline, it's my mind. I have to remember to ask God. Now, there's a couple of things that you don't even have to do anymore like I had to do. They have an app. They have apps. Do you know that? And they have this thing called the Inside Timer. And it reads you what you're supposed to do at night and let you meditate and go to sleep. Just turn it on, you'll go to sleep. Your soul will hear it. Don't worry about it. Keep doing it. Something will happen. Okay, that's discipline. Just do that. It's free, for God's sakes. It's wonderful. In the morning, it'll read you on awakening. It'll read you all the way through to it works. It really does. It'll read you the whole thing, and then it'll give you 5 minutes to sit there. And you can do it. And then it tells you a couple of things. And this is what I want to tell you. Okay, so I've got some of this down pretty well. So I'm listening to this and doing this because, just free. I can just listen. It's wonderful. Love it. About 10 minutes, I'm done. And I'm not done because I meditate more with the birds and stuff like that. But with this little portion, I like to do it. The first thing I heard was something that I don't do, and I realized. The first thing I heard in listening to this, it says, we say thy will be done many times a day. I was sitting there with God and I said, I don't say that a lot, God. You know that? I say it once in a while. If things aren't going my way, I'll say thy will be done. I don't do it. And then the sponsee that's on here someplace, she said, there's an app. I said, what is it? She says, it's Prayminder. Prayminder. And you can program it with any prayer you want. So I put it on. My watch tells me, that my phone tells me, you never know when it's going to come up. You can have it done 5 times a day or 20. I have it 20 times a day. I have 4 prayers that come. I never know when it's going to happen. It'll say, thy will be done. I'll go, thy will be done. So I can tell you now, I do it many times a day. That was interesting. The second thing I found listening to this, which was fascinating, and I've been doing it now for almost, I don't know, maybe about 8 months, where I went, I have always asked for an intuitive thought or inspiration, but I realized I'd never asked for the decision. Do you know that by asking for the decision, you're asking for the power to carry it out? I didn't know that. I mean, when I was young, when I came in this program, so why would I ask for any power? I mean, I get up, I go, I'm a mover, I still am. I'm old now and I'm traveling. You couldn't even reach me, could you, Allie? I mean, I was all over the place. I was in North Atlantic Ocean in the Faroe Islands this summer with the big book. It was like, life's in session, let's get it on. But at my age today, I need a little power. And so I realized I never asked for the decision. And so I decided to have a little, I always test this out. I don't know why I have to test God, but I do. And so I said, God, I need an inspiration, intuitive thought, and a decision. Now I did it this morning specifically. I just said it. And I did some writing this morning. I don't know, it was just all of a sudden, I thought of something. I had inspiration. And one of my sponsees called me at 8. She said, what are you doing? I said, I'm making lentil soup. I mean, I did that. Do you know I ordered Christmas presents today? It was like, you will be given power and you won't even know you've been given it. It's a fascinating thing. God really wants to help me, but I think I can do it without God. So that's been just a wonderful experience. I'm doing a lot of that. The next thing came when they said in this line where it says that I conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that I be shown all through the day what my next step is to be, comma, that we be given or I be given whatever I need to take care of such problems. No, I heard that and I went, that must be read wrong. What does it mean? I'm going to ask for direction, then I'm going to have a problem? That have to be given something because I'm going to have a problem? And so I kept pondering it. The next line explained why I'm going to be given whatever I need, or asking to be given whatever I need to solve the problem, because I need to ask especially for freedom from self-will. Selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our problem. If I'm going to ask God to show me what steps to take, more than likely, it's not going to be the ones I want to take. So I'm going to need some power to solve that problem. It was amazing to me. I think we have the greatest program in the world. You know, spiritual things, I read a lot of different spiritual things. I really do. I'm into everything. Because it says here, I have a lot of books. I have about 4 books going right now, 4 or 5 books. I like where it tells me that I'm going to be on the plane of inspiration. That sounds like another realm, doesn't it? I'm here to say I've been there. Lots of times I'm there. I usually am if I just do what these black lines have told me to do. I think this program is available for all of us. Some of us are slower than others. Don't be as slow as I was, for God's sakes. Pick up the kit of spiritual tools. These are tools. They'll bring you to a place of a relationship with a presence where you will finally feel safe and connected. You'll be in a place of neutrality, as step 10 tells you. That's why I do the steps. I want to be in neutrality. Now, what does that mean? I think when I'm in neutrality, I have a spiritual awakening. I used to have spiritual experience. I still have spiritual experiences. They're God zaps. My God, they're wonderful. Do you ever notice when you have a spiritual experience, there's no logic, reason, or rationale connected to it? None at all. And yet I was trying to think this program instead of live it. As the time has gone on, I listen with my heart. My journey is from my heart to my head. It's not from my head to my heart. My head has really led me astray. But boy, when I can feel somebody and I can feel the presence, anybody that I know, people I didn't even know, I've called in this program, never met them, because they touched my heart and I could feel them. I think this is the language of the heart. Don't cut yourself short with your intellect. It's nothing wrong. It tells we can employ my mental faculties with assurance, but first find your best friend. Get in connection there. It'll be a little bit easier. It has been for me as the years go on, to the point where if I have a problem, and I have had many low spots, certain low spots and trials, I've had them. And I promise you this, as Beverly promised me, Mary Thayer, if you don't drink and you don't use and you don't kill yourself on the other side, you're going to be closer to that presence. I'm here to tell you that's been my experience. It doesn't mean we're not going to have suffering, but we sure have a lot of candles in this program to give us some light as we walk through it. I close with it like I always close, page 68, just to the extent I humbly rely upon my best friend and do as I think my best friend would have me. Will he enable me to match calamity with serenity? Thank you and God bless. I think I did about the time I was supposed to.